Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to Pause and Effect on Air. I'm your host CJ, and today I'm going to be at least attempting to run some tutorials for how to work Blender and make stuff in Blender. Let me go ahead and get the music started. I may need to turn this down a smidge. There we go. So, I have a window here because I was trying to search YouTube to find a very decent video, and there's quite a number of things that all have over 1 million views. But I think for the time being, I'm gonna do this one that has over 5.6 million views, and I think one of my friends used it to pick up Blender, so I'll do the donut tutorial. Let me see. I need to turn this down a tad.
Used to make animations, visual effects, game assets, or practically anything 3D. And best of all, it's 100% free and it always will be. If you've never used it before but you want to learn it, well, then you're in the right place. This is a tutorial for complete
I'll start with
beginners.
this.
I've been using Blender for 20 years, so I'm going to show you how to use all of its core features. And by the end, you'll finish with not only the confidence to start your own projects, but with your very own donut animation. And I know this looks complex, but I promise you it's achievable for a complete beginner. And I say that with confidence because many already have. This is actually the 4th version of this tutorial. I made the first donut tutorial back in 2016, and I've been remaking it every few years to keep up with Blender's development. In that time, millions of people, just like yourself, have gone from having never used 3D to successfully making their own donuts. One artist even snuck his into a little film called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Very clever.
Oh, the
So if
bagel.
you're ready to take your first steps in 3D, hit the subscribe button and let's begin. First, go to blender.org/download or just click the link.
I've already got Blender.
Then, obviously, you got to hit the big download
Interface.
This view, this window right here, is your 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time, because it is the 3D world. So you can see that we have 3 objects here. We've got a camera, we've got a cube, and we've got a lamp. And when we click on it, you can see it's selected because it has the yellow outline. So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something else. So we can do that by going up to the Add menu up here, or by remembering the hotkey, which is Shift A. So Shift A for Add. So usually the one you're looking for is underneath Mesh. So
Kyber7, welcome to the stream.
Primitives, and it's
Alright, give me 1 sec. I may need to shrink this window a bit. Alright, good.
what you the one you bring the thing else. So we could do that the lamp. And when we click on it, you can see it's selected because it has the yellow outline. So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something else. So we could do that by going up to the Add menu up here, or by remembering the hotkey, which is Shift A. So Shift A. So usually the one you're looking for is underneath Mesh. So these are called your primitives, and it's what you use to start something when you're looking to make an object. Like if you're going to make a chair, you might start with a cylinder as the chair leg and then build out from there. But the one I'm sure you're all very curious, you want to click it, it's the monkey. So let's just click the monkey. Why does Blender have a monkey? Well, fun fact, every 3D software has its own little random complex object because it's useful to test things like shaders or complexities of scenes. So 3ds Max has the He has the toy, and I think pig's head. Blender has the monkey, and it's actually called the Suzanne monkey head, which you can see in the top left there, named after the orangutan from the film Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Random piece of trivia. So let's get a better look at it. And to that we need to orbit, which you can do by on your mouse there, your scroll wheel, that is called your middle mouse button. If you push that in and then drag around, that is now orbiting. Now, for my laptop users, you've just panicked because you realize you don't have a mouse. How are you going to orbit around? First of all, probably a good idea to get a mouse for 3D work. It will come in handy. But in a pinch, you can get by without it just by up here in the top right-hand corner, this little gray circle, anywhere in the gray section. If you just left click.
At first, I thought the video was you, and I was like, damn, his voice changed. If only I could turn on the Australian that easily, you know? But, yeah, no, I'm just messing around with it.
Click drag on that. That will do the exact same thing. Or if you want, you can go to Edit Preferences, and then underneath Input, there's Emulate 3-button mouse. And that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in Preferences, you might want to go to Interface, and you've got Resolution Scale. If you're on a 4K monitor, you might find that your menus and buttons are really small, and you kind of have to like squint in to see it. So personally, I like to keep my 4K monitor.
I am good.
5. Since this is a tutorial, I'll make it nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's orbiting around.
And I thankfully don't need to worry about my interface button.
We can do that just by scrolling in and out. We could also do it by going up to the magnifying glass tool there, and then just left-click dragging and then moving the mouse back and forth. That does the same thing. Or you could hold down Control and then middle mouse button, and that will do a smooth zoom as well. Okay, so one thing you might notice looking at this is that it's not very pretty, right? It's just kind of got this flat, bland, gray lighting over everything. And that's because this state right now is called viewport shading. And it's kind of a lightweight, optimized way to view the scene just as you're building it. But if you want to create a final pretty image, that's called rendering. And you can actually switch into rendered mode by going up here into the top right-hand corner. You can see we're currently in the viewport shading mode. If we go 2 across, you should see rendered view mode. So if we click that, your computer might stall for a quick second whilst it loads it in, but you can see it's now different. We have direct...
Blender is not responding. That's not good. How was your Thanksgiving? Mine was good. It was pretty low-key. I just spent time and hung out with my mom the whole time. And it was honestly pretty nice. How was yours? Oh crap, please work. Oh, thank God. Okay. Okay, here's rendered.
Light. We have shadow cast across the monkey. So it's now currently being lit by this lamp up here. So if I wanted to, zoom in on that lamp there and just kind of like move it around, you can see it's kind of hard to focus on. Like it's always exactly not in the right view. And that's because we are centered on our monkey right now. We need to change.
Yours was good, saw your grandpa? Ah, fun. Glad to hear you had fun.
So we could do that one of 2 ways. One, if you're on a laptop, you could use the little move tool there. That will do that. Or everyone else, shift, middle mouse click, drag, that will do the same thing. So middle mouse is for orbiting, shift middle mouse is for pan to change your view to something else. Okay, so I want to move my light because it's too moody. I want to be able to see the monkey's face there. So to move an object, you need to do it one of 2 ways. One, you could go over to the left-hand corner here and you've got the move tool. When you click that, you can see that the selected object, the lamp, has this gizmo, it's called, with these axes on it. And if I just clicked and dragged on any of those arrows there, you can see I can move it along any of those axes. I could also just click on that white circle there, and that will just freehand drag it depending on my view. But it's kind of tedious. Every time you want to move something, you have to like go to that tool and then find the arrows and yada yada. So actually most people in Blender prefer to use the hotkeys. So we just keep it in the default selection state here, and instead remember the hotkey, which is G for grab. Now I've just tapped the key and you'll notice as I move my cursor that it's now attached to my cursor. it's not, my cursor isn't even actually close to it. In fact, my cursor could be on the other side of the screen and I could tap G and it will move it. And at first this is kind of awkward. You're like, why is it working this way? But once you get used to it, you realize it's actually handy because you don't have to spend all this time like navigating your cursor to something just so that you can move it. Your cursor could be over here and then just tap it and you're moving it. So whilst you're in this move state, if you want to cancel a movement, you can do it one of two ways. You could just hit escape, or you could right click. Then if you want to confirm a movement, like say I want to move my lamp here and I like the movement, I could just do a single left.
What would happen if you put the light in the monkey? I can definitely try that. Hold on a sec. I need to put this back at 0, 0, 0. Oh, whoops. Also, I just realized I lost the light. There we go. But yeah, putting the light in the monkey creates this like really weird effect. So it's definitely better to have it. That's not good. Yeah, it's definitely better to have it in a spot. It's pretty far off to the point where you can at least still see the monkey's face. This is actually a pretty good spot. There. What if I moved it down a tad? Yeah. All my experience with Maya is really coming back to me. Just a bit.
So something, just right click. If I want to confirm the movement, left click. But let's say I wanted to move it along an axis. Like, I like these arrows here and I want to be able to move it on just a specific axis. Well, I can do that whilst I'm in that grab state as well. So after I've hit the G key to grab it, I can then tap the letter of the axis that I want to move it on. So if you don't know, in the real world and in the 3D software, there's 3 axes because there's 3 dimensions. There's the X axis, which I can move by hitting the X key, the Y axis to move it back and forth along the Y axis with the Y key, or the Z axis to move it up and down on the Z axis. So you can remember those letters, the X, Y, and Z, or the method that I actually prefer to use is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse button and then pull out, you can see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around, it will snap it to the nearest axis, which again is maybe an odd way to work, but it's actually really handy because it means you don't have to think of the letter and locate it on your keyboard. I can just tap G to move it and then middle mouse drag out and then just find that exact axis that I'm looking for.
Interesting.
So it's very fast to just quickly move the lamp exactly where I want it. By the way, if you're finding it hard to remember all of the keyboard shortcuts that I've mentioned, I've actually put together a PDF, a cheat sheet of Blender's most common hotkeys, and you can download that by clicking the link in the description, so you could print it out or you could just have it on a separate monitor while you work. Also, if you are from another 3D software package, you might notice that Blender's hotkeys are different than what you are used to. So if you actually go to Preferences, just for those people that are from other softwares, if you change the key map to industry compatible, you'll find that these shortcuts are probably more in line with what you remember from other software. I'll also put a link to a cheat sheet that is just for the industry compatible key maps that somebody else put together. I've got nothing to do with it, but I'll put that link there so you can check it out as well. For the rest of this tutorial series, I'm going to use Blender's hotkeys. Just keep that in mind. Now let's say, as I am moving around here, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. I've got some nice Rembrandt lighting across the monkey's face. I want to take a photo. I want to take a nice, pretty image of this and post it on socials for clout. right? Well, I could take a screenshot of it, but that would be silly because it's got all these lines all over. It's all noisy, right? We don't like it. The way you take a photo, a pretty image in Blender, is to do a render. So you could do that one of two ways, by going up to render and hitting render image, or remembering the hotkey which says next to it F12. So when you do that, a little window will pop up. It will use your CPU or GPU, depending on which renderer you've got active, and it will render out a pretty image. And from here, you could go image and then save as, and that'll save it as a PNG or whatever, wherever you want to save it. But you might notice looking at this that this is actually a different view than what we have here.
Interesting.
Right? So here I've got a nice view of the monkey's face, but there is a different view. And the reason for that is when you do a render, it's not rendering from the view that you're looking at currently. It's always going to render from the point of view of the camera. So this is our camera over here, and it's looking from this angle. And we can actually look through the camera by just clicking the little camera icon there, or by remembering the hotkey, which is number pad 0. So how do we move the camera? Well, Blender's a little awkward, maybe a little different to other software packages, but you're supposed to like hit G to move it, and then like middle mouse to zoom in and out. And then if you want to like move it along an axis, I guess G and then X. You could do that, but actually what a lot of users prefer, especially those from other software packages, is if you've got your camera selected, which by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but up here, this is your outliner. It's kind of an inventory of every item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N, N is to bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view. There's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now with that active, if I just use the same keyboard.
Wait, let me back that up a little bit.
Packages, but you're supposed to and then save as, and that will save it as a PNG or whatever, wherever you want to save it. But you might notice looking at this that this is actually a different view than what we have here, right? So here I've got a nice view.
Okay, so that's the camera viewpoint. Okay, I've moved the camera. Let me just check the render image again. I need to move that back by a lot. Hi, SC Jolly, welcome to the stream. The thing that I'm realizing now is like I may want to move this up a tiny bit more. Did not mean to do that. Nope. There we go. Okay, render image again. Damn, what? right, hold up. Okay, I'm not seeing the monkey. Let me try this again. Okay, move it down just a tiny bit more. Ah, there we go. God, why was that so difficult?
Monkey's face, but there is a different view. And the reason for that is when you do a render, it's not rendering from the view that you're looking at currently. It's always going to render from the point of view of the camera. So this is our camera over here, and it's looking from this angle. And we can actually look through the camera by just clicking the little camera icon there, or by remembering the hotkey, which is number pad.
Oh. That's how you do that. God, he goes through things so quickly. Okay, now it's looking at it dead on. Alright.
So how do we move the camera? Well, Blender's a little awkward, maybe a little different to other
You think the
software
camera's
packages.
backwards? Don't worry, I
Like
fixed it.
G to move it, and then like middle mouse to zoom in and out. And then if you wanted to like move it along an axis, I guess G and then X. You could do that, but actually what a lot of users prefer, especially those from other software packages, is if you've got your camera selected, which by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but up here, this is your outliner. It's kind of an inventory of every item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N, N is to bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view. There's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now with that active, if I just use the same keyboard shortcuts as before, middle mouse button to orbit around, shift middle mouse to drag it, you can see that the camera is moving with it. So essentially the view, I can set it up exactly as I want, then hit N again, and then I can disable that. And then now as I pull out, you can see that the camera will stay exactly where it was, and I could do a lovely, pretty render. But this is too simple. If we post this on the internet, people are bound to make fun of us. Imagine that. Well, we could give it some color, right? So with our monkey head selected, we can go over to here to the properties. So this properties section is where you might spend the other, I don't know, another 5 to 8%, I don't know, getting too exact there. You might spend another 5% of your time in this section, but it's where all of the properties for things
Hi, I'm back. Mod for Good. Welcome to the stream. Good to see ya.
are in Blender. So for example, you've got like the render properties, like the size of the image that you're saving something as is defined there. And some of these properties will stay here no matter what is selected, but others are selection dependent. So you can see actually if I click the camera there, you can see I get a little camera tab at the bottom there. But if I select my monkey, you'll see the camera tab disappears, but instead I have some other ones that appear. So one that we might want to change is underneath material, and this will enable us to add a material, change the color to something else, essentially. So underneath here where it's got new, I'm just gonna hit new. And then you've got a bunch of options, very ooh, IOR,
Hello? Okay, yeah, Blender's not responding. I gotta wait for it. Here we are.
surface. Again, don't worry about it. We'll get to all of that later on. The one that defines the color is the base color. So if I do a single left click on that white box there, I can then change this color to whatever I want. I could make it an odd, creepy, skin-toned monkey head, right? Like that. And do a render.
I'm gonna go purple.
Okay, so hey, all right, it's better, but still it's too simple. I think people will think we haven't put enough effort.
Here, I will let's see. I'll keep that alpha at 1.0.
Into this masterpiece. So let's add another object. Let's give the monkey a hat. So if we want to add another object, how do we do it?
We're giving the monkey a hat?
Well, we could go to the add menu, like I mentioned before, or the hotkey Shift A. So what sort of hat do we want to add? We could do a boxy hat. Let's do a party hat with a cone. So once we've added that object, you can see it's just plopped it straight in the center, intersecting our monkey. So we need to move it. We can move it, and we could grab it with the G key. So it's now moving it just on our cursor there. I don't want to move it just freehand though, because I like the position, but I just want to move it up. So I'm going to hit Z to move it along the Z axis. Right, I like it there. So once I like the placement, I'm just going to do a single left click. Okay, great. But too big. See, need to learn another tool, which is scale. So we could go to the scale tool there, and then we get this familiar little axes there. But again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which for scale is just S. So S to scale. So resizing that. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's move it down again. So G and Z. Okay. All right, but yeah, let's say we want to make it a little taller. Okay, so we could scale it along just the Z axis. So S and then Z, whoops, S, Z, there we go. And it's now making it a tall party hat. Scale it down. There we go. Ha, look at that. You're a very bland party if it's gray there. So let's give it another material.
Okay, so come to material here. Kraken, hi, welcome to the stream.
Aqua color, why not? Give that a render by hitting F12. Okay. Camera is in the wrong position, so let's go to camera view mode with number pad 0. Select my camera. And rather than dabbling with that little thing I had before, I'm going to hit G and then middle mouse, just tap it once. As I said, it's a little awkward, Blender's the way it handles with the camera. But anyway, just move that out, and then I gotta rotate it. All right, so I'm gonna rotate. So with the camera selected, tap R, then middle mouse, and it's now kind of like freehand rotating around. So I'll just move it up slightly. There we go. Okay, this is just a fool around session, so don't worry if you're making mistakes. We'll get to actual practical building stuff in the next part. I'm just trying to find ways to throw in.
Not terrible, but also not particularly impressive.
Rotate,
either way,
right? The monkey's head is just, he needs to look dead on at the camera, and currently he's off. What an excuse to use the rotate tool. So you could enable the rotate tool, right? The familiar axes there. You could click and rotate it around like that. Again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which is R to rotate, right? So it's now just freehand rotating on my cursor. Remember the axes, as I mentioned before, can be used for any mode. So the X axis will rotate it back and forth. The Y axis, tilt it, or Z, there we go, to turn it towards the camera. Just a little bit, right? And there you go, F12. And we've done it. Let's save it. Let's upload it to ArtStation, and then just wait for the recruiters, essentially. All right, let's start a new scene so that we can get ready for part 2, where we're going to actually start building our donut and learning some of the more core features of Blender. So click here, and I will see you in part 2.
All right, so part 2. You just ate a piece of monkey butter? You know what? I'm going to join with you guys and add a question mark myself.
Now we know how Blender functions. Let's start building that donut. So as before, let's, well, first of all, just to repeat, make sure you are working with a new scene. Completely new scene, don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around. Let's begin fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube just with the delete key, and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift A. And as I mentioned before, you usually want what is underneath mesh because these are your primitives. So we want to start with something that most resembles what it is we're building. If it was a house, you might start with a cube. If it was a vase, you might start with a cylinder. In our case, we want the donut shaped one, although mathematicians call it a torus.
Torus it is.
So let's add that. Now if I zoom in by scrolling up, we can see we have something resembling a donut. Looks like a pretty weak looking donut, you know, very flimsy. Looks like the donut before it's cooked when they just drop it into the vat and it's just this little wispy thing.
It does look like an uncooked donut,
so
don't it?
Immediately after you do some actions in Blender, you have options to change it. And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box, and if you click that box, you see options. And look, we can change the dimensions of our torus. Now, something to note is that these options in Blender only appear immediately after you have done that action. If you do another action, like say deselect your torus by mistake, it's gone, right? Because Blender has assumed you have moved on. You've accepted the state of your donut, and this is the one you want, right? Now, if you haven't done anything drastic or changed this object in some severe way, you can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9. I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to tweak it, now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay,
so I accidentally messed up there, so I'm going to make another torus. You said a nice word, drink the what? Mod Kraken, what have you brought onto this godforsaken land? Who hit me with a notif? Okay, I thought I had this thing muted. Some Discord servers are just so rude. Alright, let's see. I need to zoom in on this real quick. Just to see, okay. Major radius 0.53, 0.25.
we could change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely, to make it higher or lower fidelity. And a mistake that a lot of beginners make, and I say this because this was the exact mistake I made way back in 2003 when I started learning Blender, is they go, well, I need a realistic looking donut, so I guess I need to go really high resolution. I remember my first project.
Oh no!
My first project was for a high school film project, and I wanted to have a close-up of a face. Didn't realize faces were going to be difficult, but I went really high poly, and then it was just an absolute nightmare to work with. So the reason you don't want this is that, for starters, things that are high poly are very slow to render, and they're very hard to work with if you want to tweak the shape of it.
I remember that from college.
As you learn and you grow with 3D, you'll discover that it is a lot easier to add resolution to something later on, but it's very difficult to take it away if you've already built it into it and you don't need it. So, long way to say, what we actually want is to have as few polys, these are called polys, as you can get away with. So I'm going to go with 32 major and 12 minor. And don't worry that it looks all jagged, because we will fix that in a moment. Now, the major and minor, this is really up to you, but Okay, so he's going with 32. I find that something that looks it's kind of chunky, like a fat donut, just looks really delicious. So I'm going with something around about this size. Okay.
$39.25.
This, once I'm ready to click off, I click off. The options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with. So how do we make this look higher resolution, less jagged? Well, one way is to use smooth shading. So if you right click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth. And look at that, this is immediately better. Without getting too technical,
yeah.
this is kind of a fakery. It's sort of like the shader is telling the renderer that this is a really high poly dense mesh when it really isn't. It's just basically kind of like averaging out faces, and anyway, it's very technical, but basically means it's not going to add anything to your render time, but it's going to look smoother. And so this is generally what you want for something
Favorite
that is
taco
smooth,
sandwich?
organic looking, like we want. If you were
What? A taco is not a taco. No, a taco is not a sandwich. A taco is a taco. Like, what are you? Huh.
rendering like architectural or like hard surfaces, like later on we're going to put this on a counter, then the object would obviously want to be flat. But in our case, we're just going to use Shade Smooth. But you might notice that looking at this, especially if you go side on, that you've got this sort of jagged shape around here, right? So the silhouette is really breaking that illusion that this is a high poly or a smooth looking donut. But thankfully, rather than adding all of that complex density into the mesh itself and then making it hard to remove later on, there's another way through modifiers. So if we go over here to our properties, right, this very confusing, lots of option looking properties, click on the wrench, and this is the section called modifiers. And this is one of those object dependent things. So if you've got your camera selected, you won't see it. So it's only when you've got actual meshes that you might see this modifier here. So it's much easier to explain if we just add one. So up here, add modifier, and you got a range of options here that can do a whole number of things. The one that we're looking for is underneath generate, and it is called subdivision surface. And it is a really common modifier that you use all the time. In fact, it's so common, it's actually, you can just immediately add it to any object just by hitting Control 1. But don't do that because we've already got it, so there. Now, some of you might have just discovered that your donut has disappeared. If that is the case, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then underneath Viewport, where it's got
Thankfully, my donut is here.
Disable GPU subdivision. That will then make the subdivision perform on your CPU instead of your GPU, which is maybe non-existent or not performing whatever. But disable that and it should appear. But if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode, because we're not being...
Okay, hold on. Very specifically, I'm getting rid of, like, that message. Like, don't... Like, that's just distressing. Don't put that shit in my chat, otherwise I will ban you. And I know how many accounts you have, but it's like, or do I? But like, yeah, no, that's crossing a line. Like, don't go there.
Tricked by...
I'm open to like joking about that stuff, but like, the stream is sacred. Like, not here. Like, does that make sense? Like, mod for good, if I made myself clear. Yeah, alright.
The smooth shading there. If I set this levels viewport to 0, this is our original mesh. This is before we add the subsurface, essentially. When we increase this, you can see that it is adding resolution to our mesh. And the more I increase this viewport levels here, the finer and finer that detail becomes. So to explain it, because this is such a very, very common modifier, it's kind of important to understand how it's working. You can see that this is these squares here, these are called faces, by the way. And for each one of these faces here, as I add a level, you can see it's becoming 4 faces, right? And then now if I zoomed in on this one face here, if I do another level, that's now become 4 faces. And then if I zoom in again, it's now become 4 faces. So it's exponentially adding detail. And you might also know that it is smoothing it out as well. Like this jagged edge that we've got here, you can see now becomes smoother. So to quickly visualize that, if I just draw it, like imagine you've got like a 90-degree corner, right? Like this. If you add a subset,
Pickle McDillionaire, welcome to the stream.
It's going to add a point here, right? Because this is the extra detail. It's also going to take that point there and it's going to average it out. It's going to average it out between these points. And it's going to create another one there, another one there. So you go then from having that really hard corner there to having something that looks a lot smoother. So it's going to take a point and it's also going to change it to make it look smoother, generally speaking. So there we go. So now as I increase this, you can see it's getting smoother and smoother. Now, the reason there are 2 options here, you've got levels viewport and levels render. So reminder, this gray area that we operate in is called our viewport. The render is the pretty version. So as an example, you could see if I just turned it off for the viewport, it looks very jagged. But then for my render, if I increase that to 3, if I do my render, which you can go up there, and render image, or remember the hotkey, F12, you can see that that donut is now smooth, but I go back and you can see it's jagged. So the viewport, you want to generally keep it lightweight, and then the render time, that's where you want to get a really nice looking pretty image. So you want to often have 2 different levels. In our case though, I don't really think we need to go beyond 1, even for our final pretty image, because this with shade smoothing turned on is good enough. And we're going to be adding more to the scene later on, so we don't want to make it too complex. So this is actually pretty good. Okay, so we have a perfect donut, and that's the problem. It's too perfect. You could spend decades trying to develop a machine in the real world that made a donut this perfect, and you never would. This is so mathematically precise that the eye will.
I just see it looks like a tasty donut, and I'm just like, yeah, it is. God, I'm trying to remember. There was either a cartoon or an anime. I'm pretty sure it was a cartoon where like they had like all this food that looked good and tasted like food as long as you didn't go too deep with it. But then after taking a bite and then really looking at it, like the food itself was great. Oh, it was SpongeBob. Like I'm thinking of an episode of SpongeBob. God, what episode was that? Was that the thing where like Plankton like shifted dimensions and ended up running the Krusty Krab? Or something like that? Like people bit into like a Krusty Krab burger and like it came back all like gray and slimy after like taking a bite of it. Does anyone remember what I'm talking about? Oh man.
See this as looking fake. So that's actually a problem you learn pretty quickly in 3D, that things that are too perfect just look fake. So you have to spend time making things look misshapen and adding variation there like you see in the real world, because your eye expects to see it. So how do we do that? How do we make this donut look a little more lumpy and interesting? I do that by changing the mesh itself. So this mode that we are in right now, where we can click on different objects, is called object mode. And I know that because in the top left hand corner you can see we are in object mode.
Okay, the chum bucket. Alright, Kyber7, thank you. And then I see Pickle McDillionaire. I somehow remember an episode of Jimmy Neutron where his friend had done the impossible, eaten a bite of a jelly donut without finishing it. Oh man, that's a blast from the past.
But if I click the drop down, you can see I get a number of other options here. And these options, again, will change depending on the object you've got selected. If I've got a lamp, my little light there selected, you can see I've only got object mode. My camera, I've only got object mode. But a mesh will give you extra options here. So let's enter into edit mode. Ooh. Right.
Ah, so this is where all my vertexes are.
Something that looks weird. It's got a bunch of little points on it.
Okay, So I remember a little bit of this from using Maya back when I was in college. So what I have to do, or what I can do is, and this was easily one of my favorite things to do, you could either, I always did it with like vertexes because that was super fun. But I can grab a vertex and then I can move it. All I have to do is like protrude it out, and then all of a sudden, look, it's grown a tentacle. It's alive! Or a deadly weapon, one of the two. Okay, let's see what he has to say.
With lines and very technical. Well, that's because this is actually what the mesh is made up of. These little points here, which you can click on just by selecting, are called your vertices. The singular term is called vertex. I never say that. I like to just call all of them vertices.
Spiky donut. Yeah, buddy.
Just because you always get some comments that go, actually, it's called vertex if it is singular. Anyway, so these are called your vertices, and if you have two of them joined by a line, that is called an edge, and if you have four of them forming a face, then it's called a face. So with the...
I wonder, hold on. Single finger brass knuckles. I see. Okay. So the thing that I had to wonder, because I poked around in Blender once a couple years back, but I had to wonder, I'm like, okay, why in edit mode for any mesh can I only mess with vertices? And now I'm realizing, like, now that I've selected two, it's moving it as though it's, as though I'm like extruding and protruding an edge right now. If I grab one, then I'm just moving that vertex. If I grab two interconnected, that's the edge. And then if I grab four, that's the face. That is so much simpler from when I was learning Maya back in like 2013, 2014. Edgelord. Exactly, Pickle. Exactly.
Is I can quickly change the shape of my object by using the same hotkeys as before. And if I want to move this, then I would simply tap G, right? And you can see it's now attached to my cursor. And then if I want to confirm its movement, I just do a single left click, and there it is. Now, if I go back into object mode, like that, you can see that my mesh has changed, okay? And by the way, the hotkey for jumping in and out of object and edit mode is just tab, okay? So you can see it's just toggling between those two modes because it's so common that you want to just quickly change things that it's just easily accessible by that.
Oh, that's so handy.
This is okay, right? But you can see it's like, it's got like some artifacting. It's like, it's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one, and it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I...
Where did he hit that? Hold up. Oh, here we go.
Tool in Blender, just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials are like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll down,
I'm not seeing that. Like, it's dragging the whole donut.
Sorry, if I change it out, you will see I
Egg
get a little
donut
ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence,
I'm not getting the circle. Hold up.
influence. Oh, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one, and it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that ring there, okay? If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down. And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you would have to do is go to key map and then change your page up and page down to something else, just so that you could get around that. But guys, you got to get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel.
Hold on. It's moving the whole object. Based on how much it's stretching, I think it's raw. Yeah, no, this is not working the way I want it to. Can I save this to my Dropbox? Yeah, here we go. What the? There. Okay, so now that I've reopened it, will the thing that I'm trying to do work now? No, it's still moving the entire thing. What the? Oh, that's strange. I think I get it though, based on what I've grabbed, which are just a single vertex. It's moving the exact opposite vertex on the Y axis, no, the Z axis. Pretty much it's just grabbing the 4. What kind of donuts do I like? Good question. I used to really like Dunkin' Donuts' double chocolate donut, but it's starting to get to be like a little rich for my blood. But one thing that they do that I actually really like is their sour cream donut. Like, it really depends on the place. If it's Dunkin' Donuts, definitely the sour cream donut. And then if I'm at Krispy Kreme, then I'll get a glazed donut.
Well, I think they're, I don't know, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's going to make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out.
Agreed. Krispy Kreme glazed donuts are great. Oh yeah, even their hot donuts. Oh man. God, one thing I actually do love from Krispy Kreme that like I don't see it often enough, but they do glazed donuts, like the standard like round glazed donuts that look like the torus shape, but there's cream filling inside it. And I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Okay, I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up just by hitting G, moving it up. Okay, so already this is looking a little more natural.
God, this worked before. Wait, let me zoom in here. Huh, I'm not seeing his thing. That's weird as hell. Chocolate Long Johns are mega dope. Yeah, I love them. I remember when I used to live in Chicago, there was Stan's Donuts and Coffee there, and they actually had a like my favorite thing ever, and I don't know if they still do it. It was, I think they referred to it as an orange dreamsicle long john, which was a long john donut with orange icing and vanilla cream filling. It's still moving the entire thing. Huh. I moved this up a bit and now it looks like the speaker in my roommate's living room. Now I'm hungry. Okay, so this proportional editing doesn't want to do anything right now. Whoa. You can feel your arteries closing. My friend, you should see a doctor. Why aren't you working?
Now,
I'm gonna restart from proportional editing.
Right? But you can see it's like, it's got like some artifacting. It's like, it's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one, and it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that.
Oh, it works again.
Tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that ring there, okay? If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down. And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you would have to do is go to key map and then change your page up and page down to something else, just so that you could get around that.
Oh,
guys, you gotta get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel. I think they're, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's gonna make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out. Okay, I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up just by hitting G, moving it up. Okay, so already this is looking a little more natural, right? because even if we were making a stylized world for a Pixar movie or something like that, you can't have just a spherical looking donut, sorry, spherical, round looking circular donut, because it just, your eye will see it as fake. So very quickly, I'm able to add a little bit of variation to the donut, just all around it, just a little bit over here. And you can see that I am just changing my circle of influence depending on what size of a lump I want to make. So if I just want to make like a little bit that sticks out, I can make a small circle just by scrolling up like that. And you just want to do that until you get something that looks a little more natural. I might want to make the inner part as well. We just drag that in with a smaller circle, and that's pretty good. Let's just have a look from the top. I might actually just drag that out and make it a little bit more like that. But there you go. That's pretty good for a donut. It's still kind of simple. It's not too detailed, but it's got just enough variation in it that it's more interesting.
Yeah, now let me take a look at that.
Oh, one more thing.
Yeah, it's a very... I have definitely made a very demented donut. But it's a very humanoid-ish donut. Although actually, maybe... It turned into a volcano. It's erupting. Okay.
Edit mode with tab. Donuts, when they're
You stepped on it. Gross.
Vat thing, right? They're only like
Very
half
lumpy.
so then they have to be flipped. But it means that the bit that's nearest to the surface is getting less heat. So essentially, what I'm saying is the bit that's around the donut, the circumference of it is.
You know, I may want to... pull some of these lumps in just a bit. It would erupt glaze. I agree with you. Just molten sugar glaze. Let me see. This needs to come in a little more, I think. This is honestly looking less like a donut and more like a bagel. But I guess honestly, this is as good as I'm gonna get it.
It's usually a little bit flatter. So donuts aren't like perfectly round all the way around. They're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here, and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days, and there was no tutorials. I would do this if I wanted to select this. silly because there's a function, a tool for that, and it is edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a single left click on not the points, but on the edge, like this little line here, you can see it's selected all the way around. So it's anything that's connected along that line is now selected. So if I want to shrink this, right? What would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could like move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing. So I'm going to turn that off and now scale in and just make it a little bit flatter. And there you go. See, it just feels a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Looks a little bit closer to what a donut looks like. And by the way, don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like this, like your lump is a little bit off. Like some people get a little bit too precious with the tutorial. They're going to match exactly everything I do. Like I'm just working on the fly as well. So just make what you think looks good. Maybe you think this is not misshapen enough and you want to add more, go for it, because it might actually turn out better than what mine is. Now, before we move to the next part, how to save. Blender, very, very easy. You just go save as, and you just get one file. It's called .blend. Very literal file extension. Really pushing the limits of what a file extension can be. That's almost a word.
There.
Blender. Anyway, .blend, and that's it. And then next time you open it up, it's exactly like it. It's not like ZBrush where you got like 4 or 5 different ways to save a project or an object or a tool or a... Hate ZBrush. Okay, that's how you save. Now, also, finally, I would say, if you need help, because I know if you're stuck and then you leave a YouTube comment, you might not get a reply. If you want immediate help, I've got a Discord, so I'll put the link below. So there's like a little channel in there where you can just ask for specific donut help. So if you're having issues, feel free to jump into that. And also, guys, don't beat yourself up. Like 3D is definitely has like a steep-ish learning curve. So you're in that steep slope right now. And it's really common. Like a lot of this stuff is very foreign. 3D is very unique. It's very different to a lot of 2D tools. But don't give up. Like it's definitely achievable to learn and self-learn at home. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to pay for a tutor. It's really easy to get help online nowadays. So do make use of that Discord. Post comments as well in the YouTube comments if you want to. But I hope you stay with it. So if you're ready to jump to the next part after you've saved your blend file, go ahead, click here, and I will see you there.
Yeah, I definitely remember like feeling several different degrees of despair the first time I tried learning like 3D anything back in like 2012, 2013, and by 2014 I thought I had like a decent grip on it, but then eventually I kind of fell off of it. So I just really remember wanting to jump into Blender like back in 2020, and then like a couple times really attempted to give it like the old try, like the old like second college try. But then I thought to myself, I just remember I kept getting overwhelmed like really badly. And the reason I'm doing this now is because I said to myself back when I was like road tripping home yesterday, and back when I made the schedule, and even like 5 minutes before I went live, I remember saying to myself, like, if I don't conquer this fear and get over this hump now, I have like very little to no chance of like attempting to make this dream come true whatsoever, of being able to be kind of like an everyman, be able to like make all my own assets for games, be able to make like just environments, models, like even stuff that I could like characters that I could just like create, rig, and to like move around and then slap into a scene. Like, if I don't get over that hump of like nervousness and like, oh my god, this is so hard, I don't want to do this, Like, if I don't get over that now, then I'm never going to, I never will, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So so this is really just me trying to, like, do that. Or at least, it's a start.
Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's
Wait, what? I happen to scroll down, and it's my stream. And of course, the other one is a VTuber.
a new technology that is going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially. Well,
that's great.
If you were on my free newsletter called This Week in 3D. It's an email from me once a week with 3 to 5 things that I found interesting that week from the world of 3D.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Sometimes I share a new tool that I found, a remarkable tutorial, a new Blender feature, a news story that affects the industry. So click the link in the description, enter your email address, and then you will stay up to date on.
You got your stream recommended.
Always free.
Who, me?
Now on to the tutorial. Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make sad little donuts that we cannot eat. This is where we finished up at the end of part 1. We've got our nice looking donut, and now we're going to make that icing, which looks complex but is actually fairly simple. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to add an object, you go Shift A, right? And then you start with something that resembles what you're trying to create. But we already have something that resembles the exact shape we want to create. It's the donut, because we want the icing around.
Let me guess, are we extruding faces?
This information. So we can do that by duplicating the object. And if you don't know the hotkey for it, you could just go Object, and then you'd find it here where it says Shift D. So Shift D. Now, when you hit that, you are in a placement state, essentially. Like, it's duplicated, and it's now saying, where do you want to place it? Now, in our case, and actually often, you don't actually want to change its placement. You want to duplicate it exactly where it was. So you can cancel the movement by hitting Escape or right-clicking. Now, when you do that, it looks like it's canceled the duplication, but you can see in your outliner, it has duplicated it. You've got 2 objects, but it's just in the exact same place, which is what we want. So first things first, we need to name them, or else we could get very confused very easily. So you can name an object by just double-clicking it in the outliner and then just typing in the object. The other way you can name something, I'll just show you the second way. If you select the Taurus 0.001, that's your icing object. If you're in the 3D view, where your cursor, is over the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outline.
Oh, handy.
Object. So with our icing object selected, let's go into edit mode by hitting Tab. So we want the icing on the top, which means this bottom half of our mesh here is redundant. Don't need it. So we want to delete it. So if we just dragged over the bottom here, you can see it looks like we've selected the bottom half of our donut, but if you were to move around, you would see, oh, we haven't actually. It's only selected, annoyingly, what is facing the camera. Where there's a mesh, it's not gone through the mesh. A lot of users find this annoying. I agree. Sometimes it seems like that would be the more default one that would make more sense. But anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here in your top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see.
Crap, where did he get that?
Through. More default one that would make more sense, but anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here and you'll
Alt-Z.
top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see through the mesh. And now, when I drag over it, you can see that I have selected all through the mesh as I move around it. By the way, you might find it like when you're in this state, it's kind of hard to select Like, it's easy to kind of accidentally select what is above it, and depending on what you've got at your end, that might have happened already. So another way to easily just look directly on the side on of your donut is to just click one of these, like in your gizmo here, instead of just dragging around. Just do a single click on either the green one or the red one, the X or the Y. And now we're in that state. You can see it's flattened it, so it's put you in orthographic mode, which actually you can toggle to at any time, just over there, which just makes it easier to just do a single, all the way through the mesh, select. All right. Okay. All right. So we want to delete that. So just hit the delete key. You get an extra option here of what do you want to delete: edges, faces. You want the vertices. That's everything. And now we have, if we go back to object mode, and then let's turn off toggle X-ray as well. And you can see it's working. We got half the donut on top of itself. But as you move around, you can see you got some flickering. Now, this flickering happens, and it's actually a very common, it's actually a good warning.
Okay, yeah. I have done it correctly.
Sign to you as an artist, because it means you've got faces on top of faces, and the 3D software doesn't know which face it wants to render, right? So it's like sometimes saying it's the front face, no, the back face, the front face, and there's no understanding. Sometimes you can actually spot it in TV shows and like VFX or like low budget stuff. You can see something flickering in the background. I'm like, ooh, there it is, Z fighting. That's what it's called, Z fighting or Z fighting.
Interesting.
So what we want to do is we want to give thickness to our icing. So we can do that with a solidify modifier. So adding another modifier. Make sure you've got your icing selected, not your donut. And then here where you've got add modifier, we're going to go generate solidify. Okay. Now,
whoa,
it's made it worse. It's
good
actually
Lord, have mercy
to our mesh there, but it's actually done it the wrong way. So it's with the normals. Yeah, what is it? It's trying to put the extra bit inside the donut. So we can change that by just changing the offset here in the solidifier settings. Just drag that all the way to 1. Some of you might have actually found that it was correct before, just depending on which way your normals were. If that's the case, keep it at -1, but everyone else, keep it at 1. We just want to make sure it's actually outside. Okay. Let's just increase the thickness a little bit too. Let's go, 0.025. That looks pretty good. And great, we've got what looks like a yarmulke on our donut. A perfectly straight edge little hat for our donut. So let's make this look more like icing. So
he called it a yarmulke. God, the way I set up my donut though, it almost looks like one of those Russian hats that have raccoon tails. Like, am I the only one that sees it that way? I don't know.
So the edge is wavy all the way around. So to do this is where we get into the fancy finger magic. Because you're typing lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away that we can't see the mesh, and that's because the solidify modifier is obstructing our view. So these little boxes here, as I mentioned before, like this is to hide it from viewport. But if you want to just hide it from your edit mode, which is the state that we are in right now, the box next to it is the one that you uncheck, which means in object mode, when you're tabbed in object mode, you can still see it, but edit mode, it's it's temporarily hidden for you. So if I was to select one of these points here and move it down,
you think it looks like a volcano? Vaguely, yeah, I agree with you.
It would be, again, a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now as I move it down, let's just lower the slider way down here, and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is separating from our mesh here. And that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, oops, undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that, we need to turn on snapping up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face. But as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, we want to also snap individual elements too. And let's go face project. Now, when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut. But still, we have issues. Why is that? Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision.
Let me check something here. You know what? This actually kind of looks like it's working.
Surface modifier, because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier, and the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed, but in edit mode you should now see exponentially more faces, because here where there was one face before,
Wait, hold up, I missed that.
let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now if we, nothing should have changed from this view because
I'm still missing something.
vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier, because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier, and the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it.
Where is he clicking that? Hold on.
This part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier. Because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now, if nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces, because here, where there was...
I am not, so I...
There's one face before, you can see there's now a lot more. It is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier. Because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now, if nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed.
Oh yeah, it did double on my
vertices.
vertices.
Exponentially more faces, because here, where there was one face before, you can see there's now a lot more, right? 4x, okay, 4x. Okay, so now if we pull down, we should see it is snapping, and if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more snug way, because there's information there for it to use. Now this shading artifact here that we can see, this don't worry about that, we'll fix that in just a moment. But I need to show because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I got to show you one more, because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible problem here, and I've done this tutorial enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically. It seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from. What's happened is if we use what's it called?
I just fixed it.
Circle of influence for our proportional editing. If that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut. And then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix. I mean, in fact, it's easy just to
I gotta say, it does look like an actual donut.
So if we
it just needs color.
Sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that,
I just fixed the problem.
We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next vertex along a chain, roughly speaking.
One of the best feelings is doing something before the tutorial. I agree.
And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need, right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less. You can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide. So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very, sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh, and then you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt H. So H to hide and then Alt H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it. Okay. It's underneath mesh. There we go. Mesh.
Yeah.
Reveal hidden or hide.
Realistically, I don't think I need to worry too much.
You can get my keyboard shortcut. It's in the link. It's free. Just use that and then you won't forget a lot of these handy shortcuts. All right, so now finally,
coloring time.
4 different ways of.
I don't think I'm getting that far just yet.
I'll take part of this mesh and drag it down, and it will work correctly. Haha. So now we get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of, edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z axis, it's now snapping it to the Z axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the, which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button, because it's like no other application seems to use it besides scrolling. But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations is going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull, so you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes. Big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design. Big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem and then people can help each other out. So do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a 2 birds, 1 solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing, not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right? So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned, like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertex here and another vertex here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to go add modifier, generate subdivision. Surface. Now, the order of these does matter, okay? You want your solidify at the top and the subdivision after it. So Blender works top to bottom, and it's important it's in this way because you want the extrusion to happen first, and then in order to round that edge, it has to happen as a secondary step. So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. Now, whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, nice little profile of this edge of this icing, another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good. But then it goes up. And it's like, it would be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge of it, because that would look more like real liquid wood. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modifier. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do. Okay, now for the cool bit. All right, so if you look at reference of donuts, right? Yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Oops, so we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look, and it doesn't look great, okay? So essentially we need to give it more information, and we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice,
extrusion,
hold down shift. I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's shift select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this? So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again, and then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally in my earlier version,
yeah, I think I'm just going to not bother with the extrusion on this one.
But then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up, and then like the surface tension there would be just too much, and then it would break away. And it would go down underneath like that. And we'll do another one here, why not? Like that, and down, and down. And that's pretty good. Haha, lovely. So that concludes, finally, this heavy part of the tutorial. So if you are ready to watch the next part, hope you're not giving up. You can click there on the screen and I'll see you there. Make sure you hit subscribe as well if you haven't. A large number of you don't, but if you want to see more Blender tutorials, that's what you need to do. Self-promotion right there. Thanks guys, see you in the next part.
Okay, it's doing what I want it to do now. All right, sprinkles again. All right, I'm getting there. Again, the stream to yourself. Oh, I see it. If I click on this next video, is it still going to be recommending me my stream?
Congrats. You didn't give up.
Let's find out. Yep, there I am. Or watching mine as opposed to 3.4K watching a Shiori novella. But you know what? It's honestly cool.
Up. you made it to part 4. You clicked on the next part of the video. There's always like less viewers each video as you go down. So you're here. Well done. Thumbs up. As you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to learn about sculpting. But first, I should call out, if you have a problem with your mesh now, those problems can be amplified the further you go along. So it helps to do a technical check now. Make sure you don't have any problems before we move along. So to look for it, go into edit mode. And first of all, by the way, if you can't see that middle part of your mesh, it's because you remember we temporarily hid it. So
the equivalent to teaching yourself
H, and that will...
Yep, exactly. That's what I've been doing since August of last year, actually. That was when I first started doing self-learning development streams just to like pick up a lot of and show off a lot of the skills that I had. And ironically, I actually have her to thank or blame for me going down this path. I will get into that a little bit later.
Bring back the rest of the mesh. And then we're looking for issues with the mesh, like right here. So this is a really common problem following this tutorial, because when you're projecting parts of the mesh, if it was like side on to the camera, it will project it that way, and then you can have like overlapping parts of the mesh. So that creates this artifact here, which will be exaggerated when we add more detail to it. So we just want to drag that back. So turn on snapping, and I'll keep proportional turned off, and then I'm just going to move this back over here just to move each of these points back. Another very common problem is you might have parts that have separated from your mesh. Now you can quickly fix this if you just like selected the point and then hit G to move it. When you're in that state, it's also snapping it to the mesh. Now you could do that all the way along, like select, tap G, then click, select, tap G, then click. But that's, anybody's got time for that. Let's make Blender do the work for us. So there's a tool that's just designed for this, and it's called the Shrink Wrap Modifier. So over to our trusty modifier stack, we're going to add yet another modifier. So add modifier. It's not under generate, it's under deform, which we haven't accessed before. New modifiers. Ooh, the one we're looking for is shrink wrap. And first of all, hasn't done anything because it needs to know what the target is. What is the mesh that we're shrink wrapping our mesh to? So with this little eyedropper tool, you can see when you've clicked it, my cursor's changed to an eyedropper. And now if I hover over objects, I got the name of it. So I want to click on the object that is the donut, and now it's snapped to the donut and made it worse.
There we go. I've made it worse.
Why, Andrew, would you make us do that? Remember, the order of your modifier stack matters. So the reason this happened is because we've done it after the solidify mod. So if it works top to bottom, we want the shrink wrap to happen before any of the extrusion happens. So now that it's there, it's correct. And this is what it looks like before, and this is after. And it's subtle, right? And you'll probably see this across your mesh, like little subtle changes where maybe it just separated off the mesh, which wasn't quite a perfect alignment, but this will just correct that. So great, we don't need this here now. We can just apply it because it was just a once-off operation, and now all our mesh should be perfectly flat. And assuming you haven't got any other issues going on, again, make sure you use my Discord if you do have issues and you need someone to help make use of the community. So
Okay, so come back under shrink wrap. Whoa. Three, two, 1, 0. There. I'm gonna need to do something about those. Okay, I just want to extrude this out a tiny bit more. Whoops. Why is it doing this? Okay. So I think that fixed things. Moving on.
Use that and post your problem, and I'm sure people can help out. All right, so we want to do some sculpting. Now, why do we want to sculpt? Well, because if you look at reference photos of donuts with icing on them, you'll see that icing is obviously a liquid, and liquid does weird things. One of the weird things that it does is that it will pool in certain areas. It's not like a uniform amount all the way on it. So the most obvious being like at the end of this trail here.
I don't agree with him on that. I personally would argue that donuts instead, like donut icing specifically, is more of a solid than anything else. Maybe it starts as a liquid and that's how you apply it, but after the entire like cooling process and baking of it, like once it cools off, it like practically freezes into a solid, like a far more edible solid than ice would be. But it's still scientifically considered freezing. Like it's cake icing that is how he's describing it, but I don't know, man. It's more like donut icing is far more solid. I don't know, Chad, if anybody agrees with me, but yeah, who knows?
There would be more that would accumulate at the end there. And I think the reason for it is that because it's a viscous fluid, once it runs out of enough fluid, there's not enough to kind of push it forward, but there's enough for it to build up. So you would have like a build-up here on each of these ends, but you would also have build-ups all along the edge. And you can see it in reference photos. Like here, we've got this like clear, was it like a glaze? And basically the areas there where it looks whiter, that's a thickened
Now
area.
that's the icing on the cake.
Replicate that across our donut. So we can't do that.
And then Kyber,
Like,
you
if go in
agree.
edit mode,
Nice.
We don't have any mesh to work with because the extrusion, the thickened part, is happening via this modifier. So we need to make the modifier real. So again, we're just going to apply it. Drop down, apply. Now in edit mode, we have that part of the mesh to work.
He didn't do anything.
Happening via this modifier. So we need to make the modifier real. So again, we're just going to apply it. Drop down, apply. Now in edit mode, we have that part
Oh.
of the mesh to work with. So we could, if you wanted to, come in here and like select the points that you want to add, you know, a bulge to, and then very carefully come in and tap G, and then, oh, I've got snapping turned on, turn that off. Pull this out, right? And go like that and go, yep, there's a little bulge there, but that's very tedious to first select a point, then tap a key to move it. It's very tedious. So that's really like you just need to use another tool to do the job. So edit mode is one tool, and it's good for like very precise things when you need to get precise things. But for more like organic shapes, more freehand stuff, that's where sculpting comes in. So at the top here, we've just been flipping between object and edit mode, but the one underneath it is sculpt mode. So when we go into that mode, you'll see that we have on the left-hand side all of these tools that appear. And I mean, this isn't a sculpting like tutorial.
Oh, this is actually a new territory for me. I never did sculpting when I learned Maya back in college. So this ought to be fun.
Really, we're just really going to scratch the surface. But they do different things, different sculpting things. Like let's just use the default tool here. Can't really see much happen. Let's just turn up the strength and the size of it. Like, it just pulls out that part of it. And even that quick little one stroke, imagine if you had to select each of those points and pull them out one by one. Like, that's why this tool is the appropriate tool for this kind of job, right? Because it very quickly can enable us to add lots of complex shape. Very cool. So the tool that we're looking for is actually, it's this one, the inflate brush, which is just conveniently the eye.
Inflates.
A hotkey, inflate. By the way, if you want to change the size of brushes in Blender, I mean, you've got these ones here, you've also got the strength slider here, but there is a hotkey just to change the size of the brush with F. So F to change the size of the brush, and you just pull out with your cursor and then pull in to reduce it, and then do a single left click to confirm. You can also change the strength with Shift F. So Shift F, pull out, click, and then Shift F, pull in, click. Anyways, so if I was to draw on this, you can see that I'm inflating that edge. I could also inflate here, but you very quickly realize, like, look at that. Look at that. What is that, right? The eye is going to see that. As a pro tip, your eye is like, if you're going low res, don't go low res for things that are round, because your eye is very quickly going to spot low poly things. Actually, just last night I was playing Spider-Man, the Miles Morales one, and there was like this coffee cup that was on a table, and then you walk, and it looks fine, like as a background asset, but then part of it, the mission, you had to go up and read something on the table, and you had to get close to this coffee cup, and it was like 8 vertices. It just looked like almost looked like a nut on a wheel of a car, right? Just like that jagged. So anyways, what I'm saying is this is a rounded form, so we need more information, we need more detail to sculpt on. The reason this is jagged and the reason there's not enough detail here is that just even though we have a subsurf modifier, a subdivision modifier, it's applying it after we do the sculpt mode. So when you're in sculpt mode, it's still just using your raw mesh here, and then it does this as a secondary step. So if we want to sculpt into this detail, we need to apply this. So I'm going to use more than one. I'm going to use 2 because I want to have even more detail. So importantly, by the way, if you're applying a subdivision modifier, even though you've got 2 levels here, it will always use just the viewport. So your render amount here could be whatever, but when you hit apply, it's just going to apply whatever is in the viewport. So I'm going to go 2 levels and hit apply. Now look at this. We have 16 times the detail because we have level 1, which would be 4x
Jeez.
Multiply, and then 4x
All right,
of
Kyber7, thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your night, and hopefully I catch you in the next stream. I'm playing Anton Blast tomorrow, so stay tuned. See you soon.
4x, 16. So we have 16
or just see you next time.
vertices to play with. So now when we go into sculpt mode, look at it now. When we sculpt, look at that. So much more room to work with, and much more fun. So now that I'm in that state, I'm going to just do little circles with this brush on each of these points here. And the reason I'm doing like little circles like this is that by default the stroke state is space. You can switch it to airbrush if you want, and then you can just click and hold it there, but I find that to actually be like harder to control, so I just keep it in space mode and then just do like little circles, and then that enables you to just kind of continue adding more pressure as you move your mouse. So a little circle like that, and there you go. Very quickly, already we have a more interesting looking shape across it. So another brush, another tool, I guess you call it. Is it a brush or is it? I think these technically are called brushes. But anyways, another one that you use all the time is grab, and conveniently it's the hotkey G. And what this does is just like pushing clay with your finger. It's like It's really cool. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm actually just exaggerating the design, because that is what makes appealing design. It's exaggerating the addition and subtraction that you see in a shape, even though in the real world you might not see this like tapered thing like that. Because it's got this bulbous end, you want to draw more attention to that kind of globule at the end there. And to do that, yeah, if you just make this a little bit tapered using this tool, it can do that. And we get to learn about a new tool in Blender, which is the whole point of this tutorial. So, yeah, all right, pull this around, just click and drag and click and drag. You can change the shape, size of the brush with F, and you've got more time than me, so maybe make this better than what I'm doing really quickly, but just get, generally a shape like that, and it should look a little nicer. Okay, so now let's do that raised edge all the way around the rim of this. Now, in previous versions of this tutorial, I said just use the inflate brush and then just like draw across it. The problem with this is that this is so imprecise, and you can accidentally like draw over another bit, and then you look at it side on and you get these like
Hold on. Nope, don't be messing with that. Oh good, that's actually pushing it back inward. All right. Oh, yeah, this is actually pretty fun. Honestly, I think I may want to extrude this donut here. If possible. Or not.
noticeable,
Moving on.
like divots across the donut. And it's not very, it's very hard to do because you keep like accidentally clicking off it and then on it, and you get this like jagged, like dig, 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 dig. It's not very appealing, the point is. So let's go back. We can learn about another tool. It's another excuse to learn about another tool, and that tool is called the mask tool. So it's actually in the list here, but I never remember what it is. It's just hit M for mask, and it's this one. And what this enables you to do is, if you just draw on it, you get this grade shape, right? And then when you're using another tool, like say you switch to the inflate brush now, and if you draw over this, let me just increase this. Yeah, if you drew over this, you can see it's applying an inflation to everything except the area that is dark. And that's how you can create like a skin lesion on a zombie or something like that. So a mask is very useful in sculpting, used a lot. And we're going to use it in just this case. What we're going to do is mask out just this area along the rim there. And then we're going to apply a constant inflate value to just the area that we've masked. So first use the mask tool.
Nope.
Oop, mask. And it doesn't really make sense to use like a half opaque mask. So we're going to set the strength all the way to 1. And then I'll use a brush size about here. So essentially, where do I want the inflation? Like, do I want this much inflation on the rim? No, probably something about here. And then I'm just going to paint a darkened value all the way across it. I just want to make sure that it's, you know, fairly even. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but fairly even across it. And I obviously don't want it to be in this part because that, you know, the liquid has flowed all the way down and it's broken the trail and it's gone down there. So I don't want any raised area there. And again, I apologize if this is like tedious, but it's a way to learn Blender piece by piece. Okay, hey, speaking of which, I forgot. With the sculpt tools in Blender, for whatever reason, it has assumed by default that you might want to sculpt on the other side of your mesh. So you can see I've got this smear here, and that's because somewhere I was painting over here, I went through the mesh and it painted on the other side of the mesh, over there. Very annoying. So, I can undo it. It's just easier than like repainting that whole thing. And what you want to do with your mask tool is underneath brush, set it to front faces only. And that means when you paint, it should mean that as you draw, it could still happen, just be careful, but it should happen less. It shouldn't happen like on the opposite side of the same mesh. Anyways, it should happen less. By the way, I didn't call it out because it's not essential, but if you do ever want to isolate and only see the selected object, / is the isolation mode. So / on the number pad or the actual normal keyboard will pull you in and out of that state. Anyway, so now with the mask brush, with front faces only enabled, I can paint along it, and it should happen less, essentially. All right, I don't know what to say, but this doesn't take long once you've set it up. And assuming you've got the strength of 1, by the way, you don't want to have areas with like half opaque, right? Because we want to have a constant value across it as we inflate it. And we should get a nice raised edge that goes all the way along the donut. Okay, great. Just clean it up if you got any areas that look a little untidy, a little unkempt. Yep. Awesome. All right. So, as I mentioned, the mask will actually mask out the area, so you can't paint on it. We obviously want to only paint on the area that we mask. So we want to invert it by just hitting Control-I, same hotkey as Photoshop, etc. And then, obviously, if we went to the inflate brush and then we just painted, like, yes, we're only now painting onto that area, but it also doesn't solve our problem of like different values across it. So we want to apply a uniform inflation on just these areas. So there is a tool in the sculpt tools called, where is it? Mesh Filter. So I will be honest, it's probably the laziest implementation of a tool in Blender. Like, mesh filters, they're not really well documented. You kind of have to just learn how they work. But unlike all these other brushes here, the way this one works is it's applying a uniform value to the entire mesh. So it doesn't actually matter where you click on the mesh, it's going to apply it. And it's applying what is in the filter types listed here. So if I just click, this is the other thing you have to learn. If I drag to the right, I'm inflating. If I drag to the left, I'm deflating and sort of subtracting the opposite direction. You just kind of have to learn that that's how this specific tool works. My theory is...
I need to pause this so that I can make a point of this. Doesn't this look like some kind of like implosion, explosion video that like the slow-mo guys would make? God, that's a YouTube channel I never thought I'd reference on this channel, but like, I go this way and it flares out like a jellyfish. Okay, jellyfish imploding, like, just imploding on itself. Jellyfish. Okay, jellyfish. Whoops. Okay. Jellyfish. I'm trying to... Jellyfish implosion. Jellyfish implosion. Jellyfish implosion. I'm very stupid, but I think I'm hilarious.
Is, by the way, to go on a rant, ZBrush's user experience and interface is so arcane, so badly hodgepodge together from ideas over the last 2 decades. They never had any thought in the process, they just lumped it all in there. And Blender's sculpting tools competes with that. So they're like, hey, yeah, the filter tools, yeah, they're not the easiest to understand, but at least we're not ZBrush. That's my theory. It's my working theory I'm going with. But anyways, point is
that is true. ZBrush is awful.
We're applying a uniform value to everything. Hooray for us. I might also, I'm going to set the strength of this to 0.1, and that just means that as I move the cursor, it's applying less of a value for the movement, so I can use smaller movements. The other thing though is this is a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard, so we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth mask. Okay. Now, if we use the inflate, just twitch to the right a little bit, I'm just gonna go with that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So,
oh yeah, I'm looking good.
That's roughly it. Now, there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact, and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by first of all just clearing the mask and then using the smooth tool.
How do you clear the mask? I need to rewind the video a bit.
A little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So, yeah, that's roughly it. Now, there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact, and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by first of all just clearing the mask and then using the smooth tool. By default, it's too high, so just turn it down. And I'm just going to smooth that edge, and that'll just sort of clear up some of this artifacting. It's a little too high. For whatever reason,
Where is my smooth tool? Scrape, plateau, flatten, fill, layer, inflate, draw sharp, crease polish. Ah! Oh. Well. I think if I went back to the inflate tool. Is there a flatten tool by any chance? Okay, I need to inflate a spot. Yeah.
The smooth tool, which also you can access at any point when you're in sculpt mode just by holding down shift, and it'll temporarily invoke the smooth tool, and it'll use the value that is on the smooth tool. So you'll be in this mode and then you hold down shift and it'll actually not use this value, but the value that's on the smooth tool. Again, ZBrush is the competitor, so some things are a little weird here. Anyways, so it's a little too high. Just turn it down, and now I've got a nice value. And I'm just smoothing this out just to clear up some of the artifacting all the way around the mesh. Ba-doop, boop, boop. And that's it. Lovely. Hey, if you've made it this far, 3D is in the cards. It's for you, because we've done some fairly complex things. So if you're a beginner and you're just getting started in Blender, congrats, because it is a steep learning curve, but you have learned some very complex modeling and some sculpting. So congrats, you've made it this far. Why not continue on the series? Click here to see the next video, and I will see you in that part.
Part 5, shading. Now we're adding color.
We finished at the end of the last part, and we are ready for some materials. Before we continue, do a check over though, because I looked inside my donut and I saw this.
It's not recommending my stream anymore. Oh well.
Which shouldn't be here, obviously. So make sure you don't have any hidden meshes that should definitely not be there. You've only got your camera, your donut, your icing, and your light. Okay? Okay, so materials. Let's do some materials. If we jumped into our render mode, that little button that I showed you on the first part that takes you into render view mode, you can see we've got a lamp and it's lighting our donut in a very depressing, cold gray. So let's give it a material. Down here, the little material tab, and then we're gonna hit new. So just like before, the one thing we're gonna change is the color. Let's make it a nice pink color. And that looks pretty good. The other value that you typically want to change for a lot of objects is the roughness value. So you can see the further I go all the way to the left-hand side, the more it becomes a mirror. So all the way at 0 is basic.
Huh. It's not showing up. That is very odd.
Cold gray. So let's give it a material. Down here, the little material tab, and then we're going to hit new.
Do I have to...
So just like before, the one thing we're going to change is the color. Let's make it a nice pink color. And that looks pretty good. The other value that you typically want to change for a lot of objects is the roughness value. So you can see the further I go all the way to the left-hand side, the more it becomes a mirror. So all the way at 0 is basically a mirror. And then all the way to the right is your like most porous object, like a brick or something like that. Basically something that looks like it doesn't have a reflection, although everything does.
Something is happening here. It's not applying it.
Roughness is, which shouldn't be here, obviously. So make sure you don't have any hidden meshes that should definitely not be there. You've only got your camera, your donut, your icing, and your light, okay? Okay, so materials. Let's do some materials. If we jumped into our render mode, that little button that I showed you on the...
Oh, I see. Right, I had to be in render mode. Ugh, I'm getting kind of warm in here. Time for my ceiling fan to come back on.
First part that takes you into rendered view mode. You can see we've got a lamp and it's lighting our donut in a very depressing cold gray. So let's give it a material. Down here, the little material tab, and then we're going to hit new. So just like before, the one thing we're going to change is the color.
Render and
Let's make it a
blender.
nice pink color. And that looks pretty good. The other value that you typically want to change for a lot of objects is the roughness value. So you can see the further I go all the way to the left-hand side, the more it becomes a mirror. So all the way at 0 is basically a mirror. And then all the way to the right is your like most porous object, like a brick or something like that. Basically something that looks like it doesn't have a reflection, although everything does. The roughness is just merely dissipating that reflection everywhere, so it appears as though it doesn't. But anyways, so...
Oh, oopsie, Blender's not responding again. I should really save this. There we go. There. There. Perfect. I see.
We're going to go with like a point, 0.3, something like that. That's pretty good. And then for the base of our donut, we're going to give it another material, and let's go with a nice orangey yellow, which we will change later on, so it won't matter anyway. But that's good. Great. Look at us. We've got a donut. By the way, we'll add some subsurface SSS later on to make this look a little bit more milky, but for now, this is good. Now we want to put our donut onto a marble countertop. So first of all, we need that countertop as a separate object. So Shift A, and the one we're looking for is again under mesh, and we're going to go with a plane. So a plane is just a square that's literally made up of 4 vertices. It's the simplest object, but the most versatile, that you use it all over the place. And I'm going to make this look a little bit bigger. So let's just scale that out with S and then click. Okay, so we want to make our donut rest onto the countertop. So if I selected my donut base and moved it up, well, there's a problem, right? We need to have both of these move together. So if you want to have one object basically attached to another object while still being its own
parenting
object,
objects.
you parent it. So the way we parent it is, first of all, you select the object that you want to follow the other object, so the child, and then you select the parent. So holding down Shift, I'm going to now click on the donut base, and then to parent, it's Control P, okay? Or again, if at any time you don't know what it is, just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way, with parent, you get a number of options here. The one you actually want is keep transform. If you just do object, it means if you've ever moved
Hold up.
on the donut base, and then to parent, it's Control P. Okay, or again, if at any time you don't know what it is, just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way, with just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way,
Okay.
with parent, you get a number of options here. The one you actually want is keep transform. If you just do object, it means if you've ever moved the object like off its base or whatever like that, it'll then like clear its position. So it's actually not the one you want most of the time. So it's keep transform. Now that I've done that, if you've done it in the correct order, you should be able to select the base and then move it, and the icing should go with it. If it doesn't, it means it's probably parented the other way. So again, make sure the object you want to follow, the other one, is selected first, and then the parent is selected last. Okay. So now I'm going to move that up along its Z-axis. So G, and then just middle tap and pull it up till it's resting on my counter. Haha, lovely. Now don't worry about this looking like cartoonishly bad in terms of realism. I'm going to show you a button later on, which is just going to make this look phenomenally realistic. That's going to be in some later parts. But for now, this is fine just whilst we work and piece the scene together. So for our countertop here, we need to give it a new material. And then underneath the base color, you can select not just a color by clicking the color, but the little dot next to it, that little yellow thing doesn't look like a button, it is. If you click that, you get this this pop-up or pop-down at this point. which just gives you a number of options. And the one that we're looking for is image texture. So essentially, it's replacing that import from a flat color to an image texture property. And it's now black, and it's asking you what image texture. So we need an image texture. Now, we could go to just Google Images and just find any old marble texture, download that. The problem, usually, with textures on the web is that what most people call a texture is not ideal for 3D. Most textures are good for websites, but for 3D, we need extra information to tell the 3D software how the material property looks. Like, how does it reflect light? What do the bumps look like across the surface? And all that information is never available on these sites. So to find those textures, you have to go to a separate dedicated website. And the website that I recommend is Polygon. And the reason I recommend it is because it's mine.
Oh shoot, he set this up? Okay, this man is incredible. Dang, look at that. Chat, I don't know if you can see this, but this looks so real. But I'd have to... So I have to sign up for an account on his website in order to... Huh. Well then.
It's my website. That's why I recommend it. No, I started it 8 years ago because I was pretty dissatisfied with the quality of the texture websites that were available at the time. So I used my
While he's
YouTube
ad-libbing,
to
I'm
invest
gonna
in
drink
a
some water real
team
fast.
and some high-tech equipment. We went out into the world and we scanned stuff to a very high quality standard. And over the years, we've grown it to include models and HDRIs as well. And obviously, a lot of this stuff is paid, but we also have a free range. And obviously, we're going to be using a free texture for this part. So this is the free texture. This is the one we're going to use. And first of all, although it is free, you do need to sign up for an account. So you can just sign up with Google. That's usually the easiest one. There's a couple of onboarding questions. I would like to actually know how you,
I'm actually going to pop this out again and then pull this over so that you guys can't see it, so that I can sign up actually. You know what? It's asking me the question of like, what best describes you? Hobbyist, student, individual professional, studio or team professional, or teacher. I'm nowhere near professional, but I'm just gonna go hobbyist. Yeah, I'm not signing up for an account for that. Well, okay, I did sign up for an account, but I'm not going to, I'm not gonna pay for nothing. That is just stupid. Okay, I'll need to grab that link again. Okay, download. Let's pull this into my Dropbox folder. Oh, what the hell? Extract all. Okay, I can delete the zip file. I don't need that anymore. Cool.
Are you a professional? Are you a student? That's kind of interesting to me to know that. And then when you get to here, you're just going to say continue with free account. But power through that, and if you click the link in the description, again, this is the marble, and we just want to hit download. And you'll see in the bottom right hand corner, it's downloading. It is a large size, but this is because it's 8K and we've got maps at like 16-bit depth.
Jesus, it's
Get
8K?
all of that accurate information there.
Wow.
Once it is finished, it'll just appear in your downloads. Then you just unzip the zip file as you would normally. And then finally, you should see some glorious high resolution images and ones with extra information like roughness. Very, very subtle, but will come through when we do the render. So back into Blender, where we've got that image texture, we're going to click on open. Then navigate to where you unzipped it, and then just click on the one that ends with COL in the name, and then just hit open. And here it is. Okay, and it looks great up close.
Ah, that's better.
Only problem is, of course, look at that reflection. So bland, so fake. And as I mentioned before, fake is the enemy, and you need to squash it by just adding variance. So that's where our roughness map is going to come in. And while we could try to add it in here, this section on the right-hand side, it's actually not where you do most of your material work, because this is kind of like a simplified, dumbed-down version. It doesn't really... It gets a little bit complicated when you try and add too many things to it, because there's like too many menus and drop downs and all that kind of stuff. So instead, if you go to your shading tab at the top of the screen there, this will change the layout of the screen to something completely different we haven't seen before. And lots of windows, actually too many. I never actually need this one on the right hand side. So where...
Okay, I was afraid that it was going to take forever. But here we go.
You just mouse over where you've got the divider and then just right click and then say join areas, and then you want to join it to the left to close it. And then I'll do the same here, because I've never needed those on the left hand side. So I've just got my view at the top here and then this one here. And the reason, by the way, this looks different than what we had before is because this is the material preview, but you can change it back to what we had before by clicking that. So material preview, by the way, it's the same. It's a rendered mode, but it's using lights, a different light setup. Basically, just an HDRI, which is like a fake kind of light and reflection map, just so that you can quickly preview materials. And really, you could use either or. They both kind of show the material, but yeah, let's use this one. Okay, but the bit that we're looking for is here. So this section here is your node setup, and it's actually an exact duplicate of what we did over here, because this on the right hand side is the simplified version. If you're just doing like a quick change, you might want to use this, but over here, this is what's actually happening to it underneath the hood, right? So you can see as I change this on the right hand side, that is also changing there. So they are linked. So the way nodes work is basically a left to right function. So we start over here with our image texture, it goes into our shader, which is the material for this plane, and then it comes out into a material output, and that's what is fed into the final shader. So essentially we could do anything, like for example, and this is one of the value of nodes, is between these two nodes we could add another node. Like for example, I could hit shift.
So this is pretty much like how Blueprint works in Unreal Engine 4, and Unreal Engine 5. I think haven't so much as touched that one, but yeah, it's very reminiscent. I like this.
Shift A to add. Again, same hotkey, works everywhere. And then I could add in like a hue saturation value node, and then I could change the hue of
what was the hotkey?
Another node. Like for example, I could hit Shift A to add. Again, same hotkey, works everywhere. And then I could add in like a hue saturation value node, and then I could change the hue of my marble to look blue, right? Or something else. So that's the power of nodes, and you could just keep going, adding in adjustments and everything you want. So nodes, very, very flexible. They do look daunting because they get all these like, you know, squid-looking lines going everywhere, but it's very, very convenient, very customizable. Okay, but we want to add something to our roughness so that we don't have a flat single value roughness, which is what that is currently. We want to use that.
Hold on. Yeah, I'll keep that there for now.
Map that we just downloaded. So one, you could hit Shift A and then add an image text this way, but actually we could also just drag out from that input there and then just do a release, and it'll now say, what do you want to add in this input? And we could type in image texture color and then hit enter. Then here, go to that same place that we unzipped it, and then we're looking for the one with roughness in the name. So roughness in the name, and then hit open. Okay, so this.
Okay, hold on.
Is better, right? You can kind of see we've got some detail there, but it doesn't look quite right. Something is not going right. It's because when you add an image texture, Blender doesn't really know what type of information it is yet, and by default it's looking at the color information, even though there isn't really color there. So instead we need to tell Blender this is a special map and we're just looking at the values, right? So essentially the color space here, we need to change it from sRGB, where it's a standard photo color, to instead non-color data, or just non-color, I guess they've changed it. But now you can see that.
Where did he see that?
Where it's a standard photo color, to instead non-color.
Okay, it's like very small on my thing.
Data, or just non-color, I guess they've changed it. But now you can see that looks correct, right? So look at all that. We got scratches, we got smudges. It's infinitely more realistic than what we had previously. So beyond that though, we could also add in little tiny bumps, okay? So bumps are in a place you would not expect. There's not a bump value here. It's actually under normal. So normal, you hear that word a lot in 3D. It just basically means the face, which direction is the face pointing, right? So if this is your face of the plane, you're pointing this way, that's the normal, right? But you can change the normal information to kind of tweak it to pretend like there is detail in that, okay? Essentially, we can plug in a specialized map called a normal map. Okay, so we're going to drag out from that normal map and then release, and then image texture. That's the last use thing. That's what we want. I'm just going to click color, then drop, and then hit open. Go to that same folder, and then this is the one, the purple one. It's the weirdest looking map. You always know you're looking at a CG texture map directory because it's the purple one, and it's got NRM in the name for normal. And hit open. And just like before, it's not going to be correct because it thinks this is a color image texture, just like for photos. So we need to change it again to non-color data. And now you would think that would fix it, but no, it looks even worse. What did we do? The problem is we need to convert this image texture into something this can read. So we need to put another node in between here.
Okay, you're heading out. Well, Pickle McDillionaire, thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your night, and hopefully I catch you in the next stream. See you soon.
So the node is found under Shift A for add, then vector normal map. So click and then just drop it here so it highlights between it, and then just drop it. And it will now finally be correct. And if I go full screen.
Wait, I need to...
With it, and then just drop it. And it will now finally be correct. And if I go full screen with control space, I didn't mention that before, but yeah, control space, and then you can go full screen, and you can see we've got very subtle little chips and divots across the texture along with those smudges, and it just looks way more believable. It means you don't have to worry about this part of your scene. It's just going to work, and you're going to get all that detail for free, and just makes life a little bit easier. But it is a lot of work. Like, what you've just made is a PBR shader, and yeah, it's a lot of work, all those little maps and everything, and having to know which setting is which. But it is a very common thing to learn, so that's why I wanted to include it in here. If I could plug my own website again, though, I will say we did hear you, because a lot of people say that. So we actually made an add-on called the Polygon add-on, which I'll actually show you how to install later on, because that is actually important for 3D, because you use a lot of add-ons. But to plug it very quickly, it actually does all of that without you having to leave Blender. So it'll download the texture for you. There we go. See, it's downloading. It's actually faster.
Oh, that's actually really handy.
And then once you've got it, you just hit apply, and then it will do all of that node work for you in the background, and it'll just apply it to the mesh for you.
Yo,
So
damn.
you don't have to do all that all the time. And in fact, most people, I think, if you're working on big scenes, you're using libraries, you're using add-ons like this, so you don't have to do it all manually all the time. But it is important to know the process, so that's why I wanted to show it. But anyways, this was our material, and we are happy with it. Well done. Let's go back to the layout tab. Now we're going to do one more thing. So you see our donut.
I may need to... I definitely feel like I missed something here. No, back to principled. Oh yeah, this looks really good actually. Yeah, very shiny, translucent donut. Oh crap, something broke. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. I feel like this is the 5th time that's happened to this stream. Ah, it really did crash this time. Damn it. Oh, wait. Nope, still not responding. Give it a moment. Okay, good. Okay, well, you know what? This is actually going to be where I stop the stream for the night because, whoops, that was my chair. Because I've already absorbed a lot of information, but 100% this has been a lot to take in, and I definitely need some more time. I didn't think I was going to get through like everything with in this entire stream that Blender Guru has got, and I definitely at some point need to revisit this. So that's actually what I'm going to be doing again next week, but next Wednesday instead of next Thursday, because next Thursday is the Game Awards and I want to watch it. But with all that being said, this is actually going to be where I cut the stream for the night. So thank you all so much for joining me on this next first step of self-teaching and self-learning towards my next game design goal, which, as you can very clearly tell, has been just me poking around in Blender trying to get everything figured out. So if you liked what you saw and you have any advice that you want to give, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and ringing the bell to get notified every time I upload and go live. I do read comments, I do respond, sometimes I do. So, well, more often I do than I don't. Doesn't matter. So if you have advice for me, please let me know. Thank you for tuning in to my other videos. I'm back from vacation and I'm on my normal schedule again. And I'm streaming every other day this week just to, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just to make up for lost time. So tomorrow I'm playing Anton Blast for the first time. Friday I'm playing, well, that's tomorrow's Friday. What am I saying? Tomorrow is Anton Blast. Saturday is Dragon Quest XI, and Sunday is Hollow Knight. And then I'll have my next schedule up and posted Sunday afternoonish. So definitely look forward to that. With all that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. I was glad to see that I had a full house on stream with almost all of my regulars coming in for this first stream in like a week and a half. Well, more than that, but no, less than that. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow for Anton Blast, and I feel like I'm just trying to stall for time just so I can let this song finish playing, because it's a good song to end on. Now, what else do I say? Yeah, I'm gonna have to run these tutorials back on my own time just to see if there's anything I missed, if there's anything else that I can like pick up and glean from this whole thing. So, I don't know. Okay, there we go. It's ending. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your night.